Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today. And though you've come through many obstacles.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Season 3, Episode 2 of Amphibia. I'm really, really hyped for this series right now, which is, as I keep saying, as I'm gonna keep saying, I know it might be annoying to do, but fuck it, it's my channel, it's my reactions, I can keep saying it if I want to. It is still so fucking surprising, yet really cool, that this is a series that I dropped, was coerced, I guess you could say, into bringing back through a donation reward, and am now at a point where I'm like really loving it. Like, again, it wasn't on my top 10 list for current favorite shows of all time, but depending on how this season plays out, I could see it entering that. I don't know yet. But the first episode of the season was really good. It introduced us to Anne's parents, kind of brought us into, you know, the human realm and everything, but also showed us that Andreas is still, you know, being a fucking piece of shit, evil, just jerk. He's a jerk. So that shit's still going on. And I feel like there might be some slice of lifey stuff in this season still, but I'm starting to think that maybe it'll still push in the story to some degree throughout the entire thing. But yeah, I don't know for sure. But it's like, I said it in the first episode of this season, I don't want Anne and them to just kind of not just forget, but ignore the priorities here. And in the first episode, she did say that it was their priority to return and save Sasha and Marcy and save Amphibia and everything. That was the plan. And she made sure to mention that, but did not tell her parents that. So we know that is still the plan, but I don't want it to feel like there's too much slice of life stuff. I don't want it to feel like it's just, you know, goofing around. I want the story to move. At this point, with less episodes this season than in the previous seasons, I feel like we need to keep on track. Every episode should keep on track. Even if not every segment, but every episode, at least, should keep on track. So, hopefully we'll get that. And speaking of Anne's parents, so with the first episode, we didn't get too much with them, but we kind of got to, like, get, again, introduced to them and their personalities and everything. And they are both absolutely fucking adorable. Like, they're really likable right off the bat. I posted in the Discord about their, like, rocking out to the hard rock metal music in the store and everything that Anne put over the speakers to muffle the sounds of, you know, fighting the evil Frobo. And it's like, it's just so legitimately fucking adorable. It's cute as hell. And on top of that, you have other moments too, such as Mrs. Boone Choi being honestly really clingy with Anne when she first gets back and everything, for very understandable reasons. I mean, Anne was gone for 5 months. That's basically like just a month shy of half a year. And it's like, if your child's missing for 5 months with absolutely not a single clue as to where she could have gone, and suddenly she comes back, you're gonna be pretty clingy over her. You're gonna be very nervous and antsy, and you're not gonna want her to go out or do anything that could cause trouble like that again. You're going to be clingy. It's valid. And I understand Anne's side of things about needing her personal space in that regard. That's also valid. But you can't be upset at Mrs. Boonchoy for that. In fact, again, it's kind of adorable because it shows how much she genuinely adores her daughter and how scared she was during those 5 months. I mean, the first shot we see of her standing in the kitchen mixing that batter or whatever that is, she looks fucking depressed. And she probably was. She was probably legitimately depressed. And I'm talking like legitimate depression, not like just saying that as like extreme sorrow. As someone who's had depression, I understand what that feels like and what that can look like and how that can even be brought about. I feel like Anne's mom was probably in a very bad place emotionally. And so, again, her clinginess just really makes sense and really makes me like her character. Because it clues us into how much she like adores Anne and how much of a genuinely loving and caring parent she is, and that's always something I like to see. And her father's a little strict, a little more strict than her mom, it seems, but he's also kind of a goober himself. Like when they get to the store and he realizes he forgot the list, his first instinct is to yell abort mission and everything. It's like, oh my god, that is a total goober thing to say. It's like I say that shit. I'm a 30-year-old millennial and I say that shit. What generation is Anne supposed to be? Is Anne a millennial, or is she supposed to be like Gen Z? I'm actually not sure about that. I guess it depends on like what year this would take place in officially. I don't know if anything's been confirmed in that regard. Plus, you also have to account the age that she was supposed to be, plus the age that Disney kind of forced Matt Braley and them to make her. You have to account for that as well, because that could change things up too. Basically, what was Anne Boonchoy's birth year? That's the big question, I guess. Just random curiosity, I guess. But yeah, the first episode was really interesting. We even got a fight with the evil Frobo. Weren't able to completely destroy it or anything, but Anne did go into her powered up form, like she showed at the end of season 2, and was able to take it out for the time being. But as we see, it's repairing and upgrading itself, which is not great. It's like a Cyberman from Doctor Who. It will upgrade itself on its own without the need for any assistance. And that's kind of scary. We still don't know entirely what's happening with Sasha and Grime at the moment. They're not in the castle from what we can tell at the moment. Marcy is stuck in a tube, being kept on life support by Andreas, for a future plan, I guess. And otherwise, we're just kind of still being introduced to things. I've seen the opening a couple more times since last episode. And again, I haven't really been studying it, but there are some notable human characters, it seems, being shown. So I guess we're going to have some notable human characters joining the cast in this season. And it's always kind of a risk adding in a bunch of new characters in the final season of a show. because you don't necessarily have as much time to connect with them as you have with other characters. But as long as they're written well, it's obviously not a problem. So I'm hoping to enjoy some of these human characters. We'll just have to see. But yeah, like I've said before as well, before we get this started, there are a couple things I still do know coming up in the future. Again, without the context or anything, I just know they exist, basically. I don't know any context behind them, but we'll see how that all goes down when it goes down. And again, I'll let you know what that is when it happens. But yeah, either way, I'm excited to see more of this. I'm excited to see how this goes. So for now, we're going to get this started. When the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black, then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So I think this is a new record. This show hasn't made me cry a lot. Like, there's only been a couple episodes that have made me tear up. But this is a new record for that, because this episode made me tear up. And it's like, it wasn't like a full-on, like, major cry or anything like it was when Sprig and Anne had the moment, in the, I think it was called Hopping Mall. But yeah, it did actually make me get really emotional. And I'll talk about that in a second, because we're going to go in the order of the segments here. So, Hop Till You Drop. This was slice of life for sure. This was kind of what I was afraid of going into this season, that they would go into a lot of slice of life stuff. But I also did say in the pre-thoughts here, I want at least every episode to focus on some important, story progression and everything. And this episode did. So I can live with at least one of the segments still being more slice of lifey. But at the same time, there was still some importance to this segment. So Anne is having to deal with her responsibility of basically being a parent-like figure to the planters while they're in this world. Because they're so entranced with everything about this world and they know nothing about how it operates, Anne has to kind of take care of them. And it's proving to be trouble. Polly is trying to start fights with other kids. Hop Pop is falling for all of the schemes and all of the lies and everything. And Sprig just wants to touch everything, and so he's putting himself into mortal danger because of that. So Anne decides to take them to the mall to kind of throw them in, like, basically just face first into the deep end kind of ideology. Which, by the way, that entire kind of ideology, like throwing someone into the deep end of a situation or whatnot to try and make them learn quicker and easier, is legitimately toxic as fuck. And one of the worst things to do to someone to try to get them to learn. The entire idea stems from throwing like a kid into the deep end of a pool or something to try and get them to learn to swim. The concept comes into play with the, I guess, parents thinking that because it's like you either learn to swim or drown, it's going to force you to learn quicker and easier. And that's also, by the way, entirely bullshit. It is, one, you're putting someone in active danger, even if you don't think they'll be in danger because you're there to protect them in case anything does happen. You're still putting them into a situation where they believe their life is in danger. And you should never do that to anyone. On top of that, when someone is panicked and put into a situation that is too much for them to handle at once, they're not going to learn. That is not how someone learns. Like, there might be like a very small amount of people who can learn that way. But for the most part, that actually hurts the ability to learn because it overwhelms the brain. It overwhelms your brain, your senses, your ability to think rationally. And as such, it'll kind of have the opposite effect. And in some cases might traumatize you and make it so that it's even harder for you to ever learn how to do whatever it is. So in this case, Anne's thinking was, this happened to me in Amphibia, even though it actually didn't. And so this should be the way that they learn too. And obviously we find out in the end that the lesson here is that no, that's a terrible idea. That's toxic as fuck. It's dangerous. It's stupid. It's just not a good thing at all. But we see, like, she gives them each a task, and the biggest issue here is that Anne makes them all do their tasks at once without giving them the proper attention. It should have been one at a time. Like, let's say they did Polly's task first. She has to build a stuffed animal in this Build-A-Bear type place without getting into a fight with any of the other kids in there. And so Anne and the others watch her and make sure that happens. So, and if they did that, it probably would have worked. It probably would have been a lot better. But by having all three of them do their tasks at the same time, Anne can't watch them and can't focus on them. And on top of that, she gets distracted by Gabby, a friend of hers, who comes in and starts to talk to her about what's been happening while she's been gone for these 5 months. And so everything just kind of is upended, basically. And everything goes wrong. Polly, obviously, she tries. They all try, mind you. But she ends up fighting with a bunch of the babies. It gets pretty fucking intense. Weirdly intense. Like when the one baby broke the bottle, like you're breaking a beer bottle, and it's like the sharp glass. It's like, Jesus! What the fuck? And then you have Sprig, who's going around this art installation told not to touch anything. But he ends up, like, not being able to help it because he's just tempted too much. And ends up creating a Katamari ball. And then Hop Hop is going through this alley of vendors and everything. Basically trying to avoid them because of possible scams and everything. Even though a lot of the vendors at shopping malls they're not really scams per se, the kiosks there. They're just oftentimes not as good as they make it seem. So I guess it's still good training for what Anne is trying to get Hop Hop to avoid. But he ends up having trouble with it himself, plus ends up looking just really suspicious with his outfit and everything, so a mall security guard ends up following him around, Paul Blart style and everything. So that goes well. Anne has to end up helping them all out of their situations, and they come to terms with, this was just a bad idea. Anne's parents aren't in this too much. They're like there at the beginning just to note how, Anne is kind of being like a parent, and they understand and everything. And that's pretty much their role in this episode, in this segment, but that's fine. They don't have to be like super main characters at all points. They were super important to the first episode, so having them take a little step back for episode 2's first segment is fine. But yeah, I enjoyed this segment. It was fun enough. There was some good comedy in it. Getting to see another one of Anne's friends that we hadn't met before is fun. And it's funny, her name is Gabby, and she's just gabbing on about things. Like I feel like the name was intentional there. But yeah, she seems nice. She seems very nice. But then we move on to the second segment, and easily my favorite segment of season 2 so far. But to mind you, there's only been 3 segments because episode 1 was a double length. But it's still, in my opinion, better than episode 1 or episode 2A. So episode 2B here is called, what is it called here? Turning Point. And this is probably, as of current, my favorite Sasha segment. And like I said, it made me tear up. It almost made me cry, like full on. I got teary-eyed. Nothing ever fell, but I did get teary-eyed, and I did get very emotional. I've obviously made it no secret that Sasha's my favorite character. I talk about that all the time. I mention that plenty. So it's not a surprise to anyone that a Sasha episode would be really cool for me. But this was big. This was a big, important episode, and it was really done well. And I want to give credit to the writer here for this segment, for Turning Point. And I might mispronounce this. I apologize if I do. Janava Mie. The writing here was phenomenal. The writing for Sasha was just next level phenomenal. This is a direct follow-up to the finale for season 2, showing what Sasha and Grime go through following those events. Because we've already seen what happened to Anne and the Planters directly after. Marcy is just put into the pod, we know that. Though we do get to find out in this one that on Andreas's orders, it was Olivia and Yunnan who put Marcy into the pod. So we do know that now. But we also see in this what happens to Sasha and Grime. In order to escape the castle, Grime throws Sasha out the window, following himself soon after. And they're saved by Joe Sparrow. They end up going down to Wartwood, where they vow to protect the town for on Anne's orders. That's what they claim to the citizens of Wartwood. To not tell them the truth, basically. They tell them the truth about Andreas being evil and everything, but not about what happened to Anne and them at first. So they're hanging out there, and Sasha is so like racked with guilt and pain that you can see just right from the bat that she is going to crack, and that she's like legitimately hurt by her actions. And even when like Grime, like even when they go to the Planter's house after, and Grime's like, oh, I'm gonna take Hot Pop's bed, Sasha ends up like she goes to the barn and is like, I'll just sleep over here with the trash where I belong. And it's like watching this was breaking my heart, because I've been very much telling you guys that Sasha has had the propensity for change. That she has very much been like, yeah, obviously she's done some bad things, but she has shown time and time again that she does feel guilt over that. And that she does want to be better, and that she genuinely does want to remain friends with Marcy and Anne, that she does genuinely love them. And like without question, I've been fully on board with that. Like I've seen other reactors like get really upset with Sasha when she makes these bad decisions, and I'm just like I've been trying to be so understanding every step of the way, because I understand kind of where she's coming from. Because to a degree, I've kind of been there. I've tried to live up to this standard that other people saw in me. I've tried to be like the best I could possibly be, and oftentimes I ended up just making things worse. And it's because I was trying to force something rather than let things happen naturally and be myself. And so Sasha here, she's really down on herself. She's kind of depressed, and she's in immense emotional pain over her actions. She feels so much guilt because she feels responsible. She feels responsible for Marcy being impaled, for Anne and the planters being sent to their world. And so this entire time she hates herself. Legitimately hates herself. And so I'm watching this episode and I'm seeing her like kind of interact with the citizens and trying to avoid interacting with them. And I'm seeing the pain she's in, and again, my heart is breaking for her. Because I understand she was never trying to do bad or anything. She was always trying to just be the best her she could be, and just not doing it well. Through not necessarily intentional fault of her own, but you know, just she wasn't understanding how to do things. And she was trying to be this specific kind of person. And it just wasn't working. And she kept trying to force it. So we see as it just builds up, and eventually she and Grime kind of come to an impasse as to what to do. As robots have started to attack and everything, Grime believes they need to head out and leave Wartwood to its fate. He doesn't believe that they should get involved and that they should just continue to run and hide, especially with his sister sending them a letter saying like, oh, we've got a hiding place, we've got weapons, we've got food, we've got all this stuff. And so Sasha finally realizes, after fighting that first robot, no, we can't leave Wartwood to fend for itself. We have to protect them. And not out of a sense of just trying to be this strong, badass warrior, but this time out of a sense of duty, out of a sense of genuine care. She genuinely wants to protect this town. Partially to make up for what she has done and for the guilt that's still racking her, but also because she knows it's right. So they separate. Grime heads out and tells her, it's like, figure this all out for yourself, but then come to me when you have done so. And he even says, like, please, he's like, I really want you to come back to me and everything. Because it's very clear how much these two care for each other. And so when more robots come and Sasha has to try to defend them, the town from the robots, we see Grime jump in and help out, and we knew that was going to happen, of course. But it's like, and he's like, yeah, they had all this stuff, but they didn't have you. And it's like, oh, it's like, God, you're making me feel things. And it's like, these two are like the best of friends and everything, and it's just super cute. They just care about each other so much. And so we see them fight together, and we even see the citizens of Wartwood fight the robots too. And Loggle seems to have a little too much fun with it, as Mrs. Croker points out. Jesus. Dude is way too enthusiastic about ripping out eyeballs. But with the help of the citizens of Wartwood, they manage to fight back against the robots, and yeah. It's a really cool scene of just everyone coming together and even accepting Sasha. Especially after she's told them all the truth about what happened to Anne and the planters and everything. And in the end, they accept her. And Sasha basically finds a new goal. Instead of trying to be the best and strongest warrior she can be, instead of trying to force this idea of strength on herself, she's going to work with others to protect. She's going to create this rebellion, basically, to fight against the forces of King Andrias in order to protect and serve Amphibia. And like, this episode really hammers in Sasha as my favorite character even more, because the amount of depth and character that has gone into her here, just her entire character arc kind of coming to a head in this episode in such an important way, is amazing, honestly. It was phenomenally handled. And it just continues to show why I love her character so much. Because this is what I kind of saw from Sasha right away. This is what I expected of her character right away. Partially because, yeah, I've seen characters do this before. I've seen characters go through these kind of arcs before. But also because it felt properly, shown. How do I put it? It felt like it was properly hinted at very early on with her character, that this is where she would go. And so it just always felt like she was going to take this kind of path, a path of redemption in a way, a path where she went down the wrong path, the wrong road, and it hurt her and it hurt others, but that eventually she would turn that around and become a hero. And that is exactly what's happening. Sasha is becoming the hero of Amphibia. And when sorry about that. Someone was speaking outside, so the dog was freaking out. When Anne eventually comes back, obviously we know Anne will be a hero to Amphibia too, but during this time that they're gone, this is going to be a big deal for Sasha, and she's going to have to... Hold on. And she's going to have to protect the land while she waits for that to happen. And I truly believe she will, and I truly believe that when Anne comes back, she'll find that it's in good hands. This episode was phenomenal. This segment, I should say. And when you see Sasha break down and everything, it made me tear up, because I felt like the pain that she was feeling. I understood it. Because while I've never been the kind of person that Sasha is, I've never been that kind of person myself, I've still done similar things. I've tried to be someone I wasn't to such a degree to where I was forcing it, that I've alienated people close to me. And this was, in a lot of cases, prior to my coming out and prior to changing a lot about myself. I would try to force this idea that had already been forced on me by others. Especially during the time in my life where I was extremely bigoted and just honestly terrible. I was a piece of shit, and I own up to that. And I also own up to the fact that, luckily, thankfully, people called me the fuck out on that, and I was able to change. Sasha was terrible here. While our examples, while the things we've done weren't quite the same, and while the ways that we tried to force that identity onto ourselves that wasn't truly us, we were both terrible people who had to change after being shown the error of our ways through other people calling us out. And so I very much connect with Sasha here. That's why I teared up. That's why I got super emotional when she started crying, because I understood. And with already her being my favorite character, it's like there's also that connection to things where it's like you just don't want to see your favorite character be in a very bad place emotionally like that. So I really loved this segment. It, from the personal connection to just, just being such an extremely well written episode on my favorite character, and how her character arc has grown and changed and where she's come as a character since she first appeared in season 1. It's just, this is really, really good shit. And it's not always easy to find the words to express how good this was for me. But I guess I can say, like, to put it simply, to, again, express how good this specific segment of episode 2 was for me. This is what did it. This is the segment that I would say has put Amphibia into my top 10 favorite shows. It's still pretty much at the bottom, but still. So that top 10 favorite shows video is already outdated now. That's fun. That's funny to think about, but and mind you, everything that's on that list is still like up there for me. Like the number 10 that was there before is still like my number 11 now, but still. But yeah, this is what did it, because again, with the personal connection, with the favorite character connection, and just the solid writing, the emotion, again, it almost made me full on cry. It got me to tear up and get super emotional. So that's, as I've said before, that's always a big plus for me. That's always a huge positive. So yeah, this is the episode that did it. This is the one that did it. And I don't know how far, if it'll get too far above that. I don't know like where it will go in the future in terms of like resting in a place at any point. But this is like where it is now. With it entering my top 10, it's just entered it. It's just at number 10. But the fact is, it is there. It is in the top 10. And that is still saying something out of all the shows I've ever seen. And that could change, and this could change, mind you. It could change at any time. It might even leave the top 10 at some point. It might come back, it might leave and then come back in, or it might just rise in the ranks further. I don't know. It's going to depend on how this season continues to go. It could change multiple times throughout this season. And I'm not going to keep updating you every time, but I just did want to say this time, this is the episode that did it for me. This did cause this series to enter my top 10. And again, as I said in the pre-thoughts, I'm still going to keep mentioning this. But the fact that this is a show that I dropped after only the second episode originally, the fact that we are giving it another chance, and the fact that we've gotten now to season 3, and the fact that it's now become this important and meaningful for me, it's like it's not on anywhere near the level of Owl House still. But again, it just reached the top 10. A show that I dropped just reached the top 10, just like Owl House had done. And so it's like, sometimes I need to be smacked in the face and told me, no, you're wrong for dropping this. Give it another chance. Sometimes when I drop a series, I'm right to do so, and I end up like even seeing more of the series in the future, like almost kind of breathing a sigh of relief that I stopped when I did. But then there's some shows where it's like, oh yeah, I definitely should have continued that. I should have never dropped it for the reasons I did. And both Owl House and Amphibia are now great examples of that. So yeah. Tell me in the comments below, though, what did you think of this episode of Amphibia Season 3? And thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.